for joining us for the Dixie Fire Incident Update. My name is Chris Bruno. I'm one of the public information officers assigned to the Dixie incident. This evening, you'll be hearing from various experts in their field updating you on recent evacuations, fire activity, and weather. If you have any questions for our speakers this evening, please submit them in the comments section below. First, let me bring you the latest numbers regarding the Dixie Fire. The Dixie Fire is currently at 749,713 acres with 45% containment. There are currently 4,833 personnel assigned to the incident. I'd now like to introduce our first speaker. Please welcome incident meteorologist Derek Williams.
Good evening. We do have a period of quiet weather coming up for the next several days. It started today with light to rain winds of less than 10 miles an hour. A small concern tonight would be a shift in the winds to a northeast direction tonight and tomorrow night. So we do have a couple of nights of northeast winds. However, they should be light, less than 10 miles an hour sustained during that time frame. So during the day, we have terrain winds, less than 10 miles an hour, and at night, for the next couple of nights, we'll have a northeast flow of less than 10 miles an hour. So as we get through the next couple of days, we'll see temperatures rise to above normal levels in the 80s and lower 90s, and we'll have relative humidities drop. So it will be drying out quite a bit. In fact, overnight, relative humidity might not get up to 30% in some cases. So that's quite low for this time of year. And as we get into early next week, we will see another southwest wind event. It doesn't look too strong right now, and overall, we don't see any critical fire weather patterns coming up in the next 7 days or so. So should be pretty good to go for the next 7 days. Thank you.
Next, we have for you fire behavior analyst Don Watt.
Good evening. So the weather is definitely going to help us out, and part of what we've seen is some of that smoke laying over the fire area, and it's not great for the citizens in the area. It is make it a little more hard to breathe and a little more shaded, I guess, for that today, but that shading also helps out on the fire. It really minimizes the amount that the fire's active during the day. We do see it pick up a little bit when that smoke clears out of the area. We do see that activity increase, but it's been very minimal compared to weeks past. So that shading has helped out. We will see a little more activity, especially up in the north area as we get those northeast winds coming in tomorrow. But we're not seeing any dramatic winds, so it shouldn't increase the fire behavior too much. Continuing, the biggest thing on this fire will be the spotting potential, which is embers coming out from the main body of the fire and crossing our lines. But that range should be short, and we should be able to pick it up fairly quick in most areas. So the fire's looking really good. We'll continue with this good weather pattern and keep our eyes on what's coming up in the future.
Our next speaker from the West Zone, Operations Section Chief, Calfire Incident Management Team 3, Mark Brenton.
Good evening. So I'll just take you through the West Zone of the Dixie Fire. We'll start with our Westwood sector, which is the middle of the fire. Basically, the north or the west part of the fire is looking very good. It's been in a mop-up and patrol status. Along the west shore of the lake, we do get a few calls for service for some smokes well interior in the stump holes and so forth. But those are just had a slight downtick from those the past couple days, so that's a good thing. But those are the things you're going to see in the coming days and weeks with this as these heavy fuels burn out. On the east shore, looking very good. This was an area that really was largely unaffected by the fire. It's been repopulated. However, as people can see, looking to the north, maybe some smoke's very deep within the burn. Again, they're going to see quite a bit, but there is no threat to the line, and the line is actually fully reinforced and mopped up. Working with our partners to the east, we're buttoning up and finalizing the mop-up around the Dyer Mountain area. That's just one area that's just a lot of heavy fuels in there, and they're working those over pretty good to get that fully mopped up. Moving closer in the Duffy group, along 36 it's very well mopped up and burn in deep, so that's a good buffer. But along here again with the heavy fuels and the terrain, it's just going to be a slow process, and it'll be something be going on for a number of days to come. But that's looking overall very good. Moving over to the community of Janesville. Janesville was a really big success from our firefight for a number of days, able to protect the community with very few structure loss from the fire. So this fire originally started as a spot fire from the main fire well over a week and a half ago or so. Grew to about 38,000 acres overall, but we were able to stop it. And basically just right now, getting the heavy mop up along some of these huge pockets of fuels and making a lot of progress over the past few days, and today is another good day that we've had in there. And then all the way down to Milford, same thing, just one little pocket that we've got some mop up going on, but overall the communities are very safe, and folks have done a really good job working those over in there. So that'll be a few more days of work before we're fully got that black line. Moving over to north of 36, we have our Lassen sector. And in the Lassen sector, we have a couple areas that are still fairly active for us that we have some concerns with. So over in Division Kilo, and we have this pocket that has direct line on it, but again, it's very rough terrain, very rough topography, that we've got dozer line. However, some of it we've connected with hand line and such. So we're working that over as well, getting that plumbed with hose and so forth, but it's just a lot of ground to cover and some really rough ground. So they're going to be diligent working there. One of our concerns is with the wind shift coming from the north. That will push on this line a little bit. So we've already had a contingency line in place. We're tonight continuing to strengthen that and putting a secondary contingency line in there. So if anything were to roll out of that we have a couple lines to stop it. We also have another contingency line around this finger, which has full line on it, been heavily mopped up, and then a third line. So we have a lot of lines of protection to fall back on if need be with the push of that wind. Moving up on the shoulder in November into the park, it's looking really good. A lot of good line and a lot of work being done in there. Division Papa, there's been some continuing of the burn project in there to help strengthen those lines and reinforce those lines, so that's ongoing. Had a spot fire and a slop as of last night. Our folks were able to get around it, put a lot of dozer line in around it directly, and then checked up another dozer line here. We were seeing a spread from the west to the east. Wasn't moving rather quickly. It was actually just kind of moving along at a slower rate of pace, but we were able to jump on that by around 3 or 4 this morning, get that taken care of, and then it's heavily mopped up today. Same with Quebec. We had firing operation a few days ago. We've checked that up and stopped that. And then when the conditions are favorable again in coming days, that project will get finished up. And that'll put a nice close the door for any movement of the fire north and threatening the 44 corridor. Romeo, again, heavy mop up, heavy fuels, that's ongoing. Tango's looking really good. And then back down to uniform on the 36 and where it's all tied in and burned in very well. For the fire that's incurred into Shasta County a little bit, we've had over the number of days putting in contingency lines, opening up the reading fire scar lines, so we have a really good solid line in. We have a secondary line just being completed, and we'll have a third line in, and that'll provide a good layer of protection for the community of Old Station and any further incursion into Shasta County. So a lot of good work in there for looking ahead and projecting what the fire may do. This is probably going to be our biggest priority that is going to be handed off to Incident Management Team 1, that it's going to be taking over from Team 3, and I believe we've handed them a good product and something for them to work on. We've been able to utilize our aircraft the past couple days with the weather, both our rotary wing and our fixed wing, that's been assisting us with these operations to achieve meet our priorities and achieve the mission.
Next up, Lassen County Sheriff's Office, Public Information Officer Lisa Bernard.
Good evening. We had a couple of changes to evacuation status today. We were able to lift evacuation warnings in Janesville proper, and that's from the Bass Hill Wingfield Road area all the way down to Janesville grade. That's been completely lifted. And we did that in part so that Janesville School would be able to do some cleanup on their campus in order to get students back on campus on Monday. And then also on the east side of Highway 395, we are able to lift those evacuation warnings in that area also. So we've had some questions online today about why we did not issue a code red alert when we lifted those evacuation warnings. And we don't typically do that when we lift something out of a warning. We'll do that when we reduce an evacuation order to a warning. And so if you want that information, if you're anxious to know when that area is lifted out of a warning, we encourage you to go to social media sources like our Facebook page. We also post it on the county website, and then also all of our local media outlets will have that information. So the radio station, Susanville Stuff, and our local newspaper online, of course. We also update the map immediately when we make those announcements. So you can go to community.zonehaven.com for that information. A lot of people will find that they need to click refresh on their browser, or it'll take them to the last time that they viewed that map. But we make those changes immediately on that map, so you'll be able to know right away when those changes are made. Couple other things that we'd like to mention tonight. We did a press release earlier today about debris removal on damaged properties. That's something that our County Office of Emergency Services applied to the state to be able to do for property owners. There was a lot of questions there about what that process will look like. The most important piece of information that we can give you on that is that it's important not to disturb the ash footprint of your property, which means don't remove debris yourself, don't remove ashes until that process is completed. The local environmental health agency will be overseeing that process, and we'll be coordinating those efforts. If you have questions about that, you can reach them at 530-251-8528. Also, for information about road closures, we encourage people to go to the Caltrans website, which is roads.dot.ca.gov, or call the road closures number, which is 800-427-7623 for that information. And then lastly, tonight, we just really want to encourage the public to continue driving safely. We still have smoking conditions out there. Slow down, use your hazard lights, keep your headlights on. One of our deputies asked me to mention tonight that they've been seeing a lot of people driving around taking pictures and video with their phones while they're driving. Last thing we want to do is have another casualty to this fire. Our community's lost a lot already, so we don't want to endanger the personnel that's out there working in those areas, and we don't want to endanger drivers and their families either. So please use caution and be safe out there. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Lassen Modoc Unit Chief Scott Packwood.
Good evening, Scott Packwood, Lassen Modoc Unit Chief for Calfire. I'd like to just put this fire into perspective again. We've talked about the size of it, the amount of perimeter line, and the number of personnel assigned. The perimeter is approximately 700 miles, and that doesn't take into consideration the unburned shift or 24 on, 24 off shift. That cuts that number down to about 2,400 personnel. So take that 2,400 personnel and that 750,000 acres, that's 310 acres per firefighter that each firefighter would be responsible for doing perimeter control, patrol, and mop-up. So with that, our main focus is the perimeter control and containing the fire as small as possible, and not allowing it to continue to spread. So some of that interior islands that are still smoking, the areas that you still see stump holes burning, smoke coming up out of not completely consumed fuel as you return to your neighborhoods or you're traveling through the fire. I talked about it a couple nights ago when we did the public meeting. We're going to continue to allow some of those smokes just to burn out and consume. One thing that we want the public to know is if they're in close proximity to a structure or an unburned area, those are of concern to us, and we'd like you to go ahead and turn them in. But if they're in the interior island or the interior burned area of the fire in black that's completely consumed and still smoking, we're aware they're out there, but we're going to let them continue to burn out just because of the fact that we don't have enough personnel to put out every single smoke within the burned area of the fire. So as you return home or travel through that burned area, look for those areas that are smoking that are in areas of unburned fuels. close to structures or critical infrastructure such as power poles, guardrail. Look for compromised root systems on trees. Sometimes the fire will get in under the ground and burn those root systems, and those trees can become weakened and become hazard trees that fall down. Trees that do burn off occasionally will fall down and land across a hot area on the ground or a stump hole and be impinged on by that heat and become a fire itself. So as trees fall down, they can become involved in fire. We're going to get the needle cast that I talked about a couple of nights ago, and that's happening a lot sooner than we normally see on a timber fire just due to the drought-stricken trees. So that needle cast has already started to happen in the areas that have burned several weeks ago. And that's primarily in those areas that didn't burn completely, where you still have browned out needles on the trees and they start to dry out and fall off onto the ground and then land on that hot material, either a burning stump hole or just heat that's still in the ashes on the ground surface. So as that needle cast spreads out over the ground, that can become an active fire again. It's usually low intensity. However, it is something that we're going to want to pay attention to. So as you're returning home or traveling through the areas, again, go ahead and call those smokes in. If they're in close proximity to structures, critical infrastructure such as power lines, guardrails, highways, or the fire's perimeter itself. They're doing hazard tree removal along a lot of the highways right now, Highway 89, 36, as well as some of the side roads, County Road 821. They're going to take down those trees, and occasionally when those trees get taken down and laid down on the ground, they also are put on top of hot areas and can become involved with fire again. So we're patrolling, looking for those areas of concern, and we appreciate your help just minimizing the amount of calls that aren't necessary, but still getting us to the ones that are. So thank you for your cooperation, and be safe.
We will now hear from Agency Representative for U.S. Forest Service, Matt Rao.
Good evening, everybody. I'd first like to start off by thanking Calfire Team 3 for their partnership in managing this incident. They have been absolute professionals and have executed the plan as designed by all the partners involved incredibly well. I'm very much looking forward to continuing that success and building on the plan and all the work that's been done to date, moving forward with Calfire Team 1. As you heard, there's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done on this fire. You heard the stats from Chief Packwood. It's incredible. A fire of this magnitude is rarely seen in any one of our careers or generations. I think everybody that's been involved with this will remember this for the rest of their lives. It's been an incredible battle, and there is still much more to do. You heard from operations, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have a lot of loose ends and a lot of open line. And so as we move forward, I encourage everybody to continue to be patient. Everybody that's here is working diligently to protect the communities involved and our valuable natural resources. And I thank you all. I mean, you're partners in this with us. I also like to highlight that, the folks that you see the logos behind us and those of us that are standing up here today representing the incident, we're just a very small part of the puzzle. It literally takes an army to manage an incident of this magnitude and to repopulate all the areas that have been displaced, return service to all the communities, the power infrastructure, the road networks, the law enforcement needs that it takes to protect your homes while you're displaced. It is a tremendous, tremendous effort. So I stand here representing the U.S. Forest Service and the rest of the federal agencies involved with this tonight, and just thank you, the general public, just thank you for your support for everybody that's out here. Everybody that's here is away from their homes too, and I thank all the responders and all the team members and everybody involved with this incident for making it such a success to date. and I look forward to the coming days. Thank you.
Our final speaker for the West Zone, Incident Management Team 3, Incident Commander, Chief Billy C.
Good evening. Obviously, this is, as you've heard tonight, Team 3 will be transition command over to Calfire Incident Management Team 1 starting 0700 tomorrow morning. So this will be my last report out to all of you viewers out there. Obviously, this has been a tremendous incident, 750,000 acres and still expanding. There's quite a few areas that are starting the recovery and rehab phase, while there's other areas that we're still engaged in heavy firefighting operations. You heard Chief Packwood talk about removing the hazard trees off the ingress and egress areas through some of the major roadways throughout the fire footprint. Obviously, as we get those opened up, then we'll start pushing interior to some of the smaller roadways. There's a lot of questions about Mill Creek on when that evacuation order may be lifted. Obviously, Team 1 will continue working with all the law enforcement agencies from the respective counties and ensuring that we're looking out for the best interests of all those citizens and property owners and make sure their safety is taken care of prior to allowing them back in. That includes the Warner Valley, Chester-Warner Valley Road, and ensuring that those hazard trees for ingress and egress are taken care of, that we make a safe path for you to return. Team 1 will be working hand in hand with all the law enforcement agencies to ensure that that occurs. As we continue to progress with the firefight up north, tonight there's potentially some plans to start at West Prospect Peak with some firing operations just due to the setup of the location of the fire and the advantageous wind patterns that we're expecting over the next 48 hours. Essentially, they're going to build a buffer to catch the fire and be able to control it on the firefighters' terms, not Mother Nature's terms. So we're going to continue to be aggressive. The incident management team comes in, is highly talented, and they're going to continue to work to gain additional perimeter control each and every day. I just want to leave with you at this. It's been a pleasure and an honor from Incident Management Team 3 to serve all these communities and look out for your best interests. Thank you.
Most of the questions tonight were answered during the presentation from our speakers. We'll now move on to the period of answering a few of those outstanding questions. We'd like to bring back up Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton.
Okay, I have a few questions that have come to us online. So one of the questions is asking if, is Dyer the only concern when it comes to the warning on Westwood? So there is still a warning issued for part of the community of Westwood. And certainly that is an area that we have some fire activity that, like I was saying in my initial, that there are some hot spots. We are picking those up. But also certainly what's happening over here in the Duffy group, because it does have an ability. We were seeing some hot spots that are popping up here and there. They pose a minimal threat to that portion of Westwood. We don't expect that this is going to be anything that'll get up and pick up and run. However, we're being extremely cautious and more conservative than we ever have been in the past because of these fire conditions that we're seeing. In my 35 years in doing this, this is some of the most, in the past couple years, most erratic fire behavior I've ever experienced, as well as my colleagues. How receptive the fuels are in being able to just take a small amount of heat and being able to pick up and start gaining some momentum with the fire. So that's why, unlike the past, we've been extremely conservative about how we're going about making sure that we're fully mopped up, that we have good containment, good solid containment before we are making sure folks get reintroduced back into the area of their homes, to make sure it's fully safe. And not only just the fire element, but as Chief C mentioned earlier, there's a lot of other hazards that are indigenous to this kind of environment, where we have especially in timber, unstable fire affected trees that can, with snags and widowmakers and that sort of thing that can fall and harm or injure somebody, or kill somebody. So that's just another one of these multitude of things. And when we go and repopulate, it's a process. It's a process that we enter into with our law enforcement partners, in particular the sheriff, who in this case has the ultimate authority and final say about evacuation and repopulation. So we are as advisors to him as to, from the fire element of it, is this safe from a fire standpoint? And he weighs that judgment and weigh also with our infrastructure partners. So when we have people repopulate, they're repopulating into a safe environment and an environment that they have the pillars of life to be able to continue on with their lives as they re-enter into that fire environment. So I would anticipate in coming days that warning will be lifted. We are getting closer to success and buttoning up those areas, so we want to just make sure that it's in a safe environment for people to re-enter into. Another question I've gotten this numerous times about the Warner Valley and understanding the importance of that area. I've physically been through that, was just there just the day before yesterday, the latest time I was there. And with that, it says, do we have any crews in the Warner Valley tonight? And we have the Warner Valley under what we call patrol status, so we don't have actual fire engines sitting there 24/7. We do a patrol through there because it's at the point where we've done heavy mop-up. As I said, yes, there are going to be some smokes here and there, but we make sure that there's mop-up around the surviving structures, any of the green areas, and that sort of thing. Chief Packwood gave a really good analogy, and really it's the math of it is that this fire is so large that we have roughly one firefighter per over 300 acres. That is a huge, huge amount for firefighters to try to, be able to take care of every little smoke or every little bit of this fire, especially with active fire. Additionally, because of the numerous fires throughout the state, we have had to give up or lose a number of resources to assist those other fires, and we lost some more engines today. So, for instance, for tomorrow's shift, we have only, for the whole west zone of the fire, only about 40 fire engines that we were able to put on the line tomorrow. So you see how big it is, how extensive it is, and we prioritize those areas of concern. So we unfortunately cannot have a fire engine at every possible location. So we do take the measures, though, that we go into a patrol status. So there may not be one there 24/7, but at least we try to check those target areas at least once a day that still have some hot spots in them, and take care of those hot spots as we can. So there's a couple questions regarding the community of Mill Creek, basically the criteria for getting it repopulated, or when will it be repopulated. So Mill Creek is interesting in the fact that we have this large pocket, as I explained earlier, still with some hot line in it. It's very steep, rugged terrain, heavy fuels in it, and it's not very easy to put a line that we can control it and get in and mop it up. It's very difficult, tough work. And so where Mill Creek is located in relation to that is it's very close. And our concern in particular, we look at the weathers, and we don't just look at it day in, day out, but we look at 48, 72, 96 hours ahead of time. We forecast. And so when we're looking at do we repopulate an area, again, it goes back to that element. Is it safe? Is it a place that we can put people that they're going to be safe and not have to be evacuated after they've just been repopulated? We don't want to do that sort of operation. So we want to make sure that this is buttoned up, that it's safe to do so, and when we can, we will repopulate as soon as we possibly can. We understand people have been away from the homes. It's not fun to be evacuated. I've lived through that personally, and my family's lived through that personally in the past. So, I'm very empathetic to that, as well as all of us are, because there's many of us that have been in that similar situation. So we want to make sure that when we put people back at home, that it's a safe environment as we possibly can without having them worry about, well, is that fire going to come down the hill and burn over our community overnight? Another one regards the same area near the Childs Meadows area. What's the status of that area? And again, a lot of this we're in heavy mop-up, and it's coming along. But again, it's going to be just a work in progress, and it's going to be a number of days before we have a really good handle on that. And then finally, there's a question about the new fire activity. That's basically near the Lost Creek group. So basically what the direction we were given from this person is up in this area. And this is in the park. It's in the Division Papa area. And as far as new smoke, it's basically an increase in smoke. And that's a result of the burn or the firing operation that's occurring there. And we use that burn operation is to connect or to widen or to improve our lines. And this is a very planned operation. It's not done haphazardly. This is something that is a controlled operation, well thought out, well planned, and executed. So you might not see smoke there one day, or because of the heavy smoke conditions, it may not seem that you're seeing a column of smoke, and then you do see that column of smoke. And what that is, in this particular case, is the fact that that burn operation is going on. So it will put up that plume of smoke that becomes very visible, especially as the air is cleared out. Then it becomes very visible from a distance away. But what people are seeing is really that activity within that division, and that's part of our fire control suppression tactics.
We'd like to thank all the presenters for their information. If you would like to find the evacuation maps for Plumas, Lassen, and Butte counties, you may find those listed on your respective websites. Incident updates will be provided at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We will continue to provide Facebook and YouTube Dixie Incident Update every other evening. Our next meeting will be Saturday, August 28, 2021. The live stream may be found on the Calfire Lassen Modoc Facebook page, the Plumas National Facebook page, or the Lassen National Forest Facebook page. In the meantime, you may go to InstaWeb and search under the Dixie Incident for the latest information. You may also go to Cal Fire homepage at www.fire.ca.gov. Please continue to follow social media platforms for the Lassen National Forest, Plumas National Forest, and Cal Fire LMU. We appreciate your time this evening, and thank you for joining us.